Hi, everybody. Welcome to Kernels. I'm Angie Manfredi. I'm the Youth Services Consultant for the State Library of Iowa. And we have two guests today, so that's how you know this is an extra special episode. So our guests today are Megan Sockness, who's the head of Youth Services at the Johnston Public Library, and Brittany Burk, who's the Assistant Youth Services Librarian at the Johnston Public Library, right here in Johnston, Iowa. So Kernels is an ongoing series of short videos from the State Library of Iowa. Each installment is a small pop of professional development that gets right to the core of a library program, service, or library methodology applied in a public library setting. Kernels feature in-practice librarians discussing their work so that other in-practice librarians can learn from their experiences. Kernels are posted to the State Library of Iowa's Continuing Education YouTube channel, and there's a whole playlist of them. So check them out. There's so many good ones in there. Got some time? Just sit there, go through the whole Kernels playlist. They are also cross-posted to Iowa Learns, our learning management system, so that Iowa librarians can watch them there for continuing education credit. You get half an hour for every Kernels you watch. Just watch the video and complete the evaluation. You'll check out the description. This is my favorite YouTuber thing to say. Check out the description of the video or the attachments area of Iowa Learns for links and resources to handouts. Because during this, Megan and Brittany might say, oh, or they'll refer to the handout, all of that, any links, all of that's down in the description bottle. So I'm super excited because one of the other things we wanted Kernels to be about was to be about best practices, but also practices that were new and that were really current and that were relevant. And that is why I knew we had to have one about this. I heard Brittany describing it in a meeting and I knew we had to have one about it. And I was so excited that Megan and Brittany agreed to do this today, because today this Kernels is about how to have a drive-in story time. I know, I'm psyched already. So I'm going to turn it over to them now. And I can't wait to hear all about it. And also, like, what even is a drive-in story time? Tell me more.
All right. Well, that is a great question, and that's what we are here today to discuss and to share with you. Let's see. I am just getting my screen set up. So we have all experienced some changes over the last year. One of them is many of us have not been able to do in-person programming due to COVID-19. And so we thought, all right, how can we do this? How can we provide programming that is safe, that we can maintain social distancing? And we had the idea of doing a drive-in story time. What a drive-in story time is just like if you think of a drive-in theater. Cars come with their parents and their kiddos. They parked in our parking lot, and then we did a story time using an FM transmitter so that they could hear it in their car radio. Originally, I found this idea from the Hoover Public Library. They did storytelling for their story time, but we wanted to do a traditional story time with the drive-in style. Not so far, okay. So the prep. So there were a lot of steps that went into this drive-in story time. It wasn't a traditional story time in the sense that we were inside, we knew kind of what we were doing, we were up against the elements, etc. So we really had to think about what are all of the pieces that we need. So the first one was, we just wanted to plan the story time. What does the actual story time look like? So we've done 2 of these. We've done one in the fall, and we just recently did one a couple weeks ago. And so we chose a theme. The theme in the fall was, we read the book, The Ugly Pumpkin, which is one of my favorites. And this past one here in March, we read books about transportation, which was kind of perfect for a drive-in story time. We chose rhymes, which, yep. So our layout just followed a very typical story time. We started with opening songs that got people moving. Of course, they were moving in their cars, but we could see them through their windows. just to start getting them moving and shaking. And then did some rhymes with them, gave them some props in their bag, and then went into their story to give them kind of a break, and then finished with some more rhymes too. Yeah. And then for our first program, I created a big book version of The Ugly Pumpkin. And that was just a way, although each vehicle did get their own copy of the book so that they could follow along, we weren't sure how that was going to play out. So I made a larger version so that we had a sign that I could walk up and down so that the cars could see the book. And then Brittany and our other youth services librarian, Jessica, read the story while I did that. So, and then in each individual baggie, we had a board book version, a smaller version that we gave to them. So that way, if they couldn't see our bigger versions of the book, they could follow along in their car, which was helpful since it rained both times that we did it. So it would have been very hard to see. So it rained in November, and then it just rained in March. Yes. And then, like Brittany mentioned, we did create Storytime Kits. We created them for both Storytimes. In the kits, we included egg shakers because we had egg shaker songs, scarves in the first story time because we did have scarf songs. This past time we did not include scarves. A handout that included all of the rhymes and songs that we were doing for the story time, a copy of the book, as well as a craft for both of those. So it was just a way that we could do it safely. They got to take everything home. So it was another thing that the early literacy skills that we practiced in the story time during drive-in story time, they could mimic well, and go home, use the egg shakers, know the rhymes that we did, have the copy of the book, so they could do their own story time at home. And they'll kind of always have that memory too of, when the fact that they had their own book, The Ugly Pumpkin, I could see the kids remembering that, like, oh, remember when we went to the drive-in? I know my kids remember stuff that they do like that, and I'm always surprised at how their memories are so young. So I could see that sticking with them. Yep. So after that, we had to figure out the location of the actual story time. Thankfully, we have a large parking lot here at the library that's kind of split between where staff park and the public park. We placed cones to mark off the spots for the patrons, which was actually on our staff side of parking. Notified staff that, hey, there's parking restrictions on this day, from this time to this time, please don't park in these, specific spots, so that we knew that they were going to be reserved. And then we also had a large canopy tent that kind of showed, hey, patrons, park over here if you're here for the story time, because they could see it from the street. So, and if you don't have a parking lot at your library, this is something that you could certainly do. Go to a local park that might have one. If there is a safe place for cars to park that's not in a parking lot, our FM transmitter went up to, I believe, 300 yards. So that's quite a ways for you to have space and for people to park. And we're just very fortunate that we have a large enough parking lot that could accommodate patrons at the library, as well as staff and the patrons attending the program. And we also had a pretty large sign outside that had the FM station on it. So I think we still told families as we greeted them with our masks on. But yeah. So then the next piece was, all right, so we have our story time plan. This is great, but how do we actually broadcast this? So here's some of the kind of tech basics. So we had to broadcast, we used an FM transmitter. So we just went on Amazon. Our director actually helped us with this. He's really good with tech. I am not, so it was helpful that he was here to do that. But we looked at one that had good reviews, as well as met the FCC regulations, and ours met that. And I believe that one of the big things for the FCC regulations is how far the transmitter actually broadcasts, so it doesn't interfere with other FM stations. But I also wanted it that whatever that max was, I wanted to make it a max in case we went to a different location, so that we could use it in larger parking lots if need be, and we didn't have to go back and look for something else. And one of the big things too, we are very fortunate. We have outdoor power right next to our parking lot. And that is something you really want to think about, whether it's, if it's an outdoor outlet at the library, how long of an extension cord do you need? Making sure that if you go to a park that they do have power, because you'll need power for pretty much all of the technology that you're using. And that was nice. We were close enough that we just needed an extension cord. We could plug everything in and it was pretty easy. And again, audio and power source. So we use, which this was, I think I said it and I didn't realize my mic was on, but I was like, I feel like Britney Spears. But we had the over-the-ear microphones, which are awesome. Yes, and definitely felt like this is like, yeah, I'm finally in the Britney Spears in the librarian world. So we also had the digital mixer to control them, which the library already owned, and that was the digital receiver. So those were wireless. They just clipped onto our pockets, and then we had the headphones, so they were hands-free, which was super nice and super convenient. We got those on Amazon for about $20. Again, that is going to be in the handout that's linked in the comments. And then we had, the FM transmitter, the mics, and what we did the first time around, we had to connect everything, test everything out, make sure everything worked. And then we just kept everything connected since we aren't having meetings right now and we don't use the microphones on a regular basis. Everything connected so that the second time, all we had to do was plug it in and it worked like a charm. So that was really nice. And then the other thing, which we'll talk about challenges later, but another thing, we use a smartphone and auxiliary cord as well for pre-recorded songs that we had in our first story time. So that was another piece of technology that we used.
The only thing I was going to add is that our director, before each one, went out in his car just to test it, make sure everything was good to go. And then, because we got the okay, and then at some point mine got shut off. I don't know how, but it's just important to test it and then test it again.
Yeah, yep. And then how we promoted this, Brittany made this awesome flyer that we hang here in the library. We post this on Facebook, our website. We have an e-newsletter here for the library, as well as the city e-newsletter, and then the monthly city publication, the Johnston Living, and we submitted that as well. And we have another one coming out this April, so we're really excited. Yeah.
It was nice that we had one in November too, because it got people excited, because even though it was really cold and rainy, we're like, stay positive. We'll bring this back in the spring and it will be warmer.
Yeah. And it was something that we both looked forward to.
It was so much fun.
Yeah. We did require registration, and this was just so that we could limit it to 12 vehicles. We didn't care how many people were in the vehicles, but we did limit it to 12 vehicles, partially because when you think of 12 vehicles in a parking lot, that's a lot of space to cover, to, get kids engaged, to get us, up and moving, and for them to actually see you. We were full both times, but it didn't require us to do multiple sessions. So 12 was a great number. Smaller would also be fine if you wanted to do multiple sessions, if you don't have the space. But 12 was kind of the perfect number.
And we were kind of, I think, originally thinking 15, and I would recommend actually going out with your team and going down at that many spaces, because once we got out there, we're like, 15 is going to be way too much space to cover.
So the good, the bad, the ugly. So we mentioned that both times we did this, it rained and it was cold.
Very cold.
Unfortunately, I was out sick the first time around, so we rescheduled it for the week later. And the day we were supposed to have it, it was in October. It was like 60 degrees, sunny. I was like, we should be doing this today. Following week, it's like 40 degrees and raining. So
it was like raining sideways.
Yes.
Our sheet, we had our Storytime plans down in front of us, and we had to put rocks on them. They were like soaking through.
So know that the weather is a factor in this, and we were fortunate enough to be able to get a canopy tent from the Parks Department, so we stayed semi-dry and kept at least our technology dry, which is really important. The second one was definitely windy, like Brittany said. We had props that we needed to use for our story time. We had to put rocks in the bottom of the tote. So just be aware that these things pop up, which I'm sure you are aware of, but that be prepared for them and just kind of roll with the punches. I do recommend, which I did this last time, bring a change of clothes because I was soaking wet, and I'm like, I'm glad that I have, you know, my drive-in story time clothes, and then I can come in and, you know, change into brand new dry clothes. And then the first story time, we did use pre-recorded music that we used a smartphone that was connected to the auxiliary cords. And with that, the audio goes straight into the FM transmitter. We could not hear it. And so everyone was ready. They were all dancing, and we're like, we don't know where we are in the song. We don't know what's coming up next.
We did like the turkey hop. And so I know the song a little bit better than the other two. So I'm like, okay, I think after the hop we jump. But we were just totally guessing.
Yeah. So that is one thing that then we reevaluated and just said, it's not worth it to do the second time around. Or if we did, we would have to figure out a different solution so that we could actually hear the music as it was playing, because that kind of tripped us up. And it was a little difficult. So,
but I will say, even with the rain and the wind, we had so much fun. It didn't even matter. It was raining. Like, I just missed that feeling of story time and seeing like the joy that the kids have. And, you know, we still got that out of by doing this drive-in story time, and it didn't matter. It was raining. It didn't bother us really, because we had so much fun.
And then the triumph. So we got to see our families again, and they were happy. They were excited to have in-person programming, even if it was in the car. Both story times, we did like the wheels on the car, and then we did the horns on the car, and the excitement of children when they got to honk the horn, because I'm sure they're never allowed, one, in the front seat, which is a big deal. And then two, to honk the horn as loud as and long as you want. And it was just like, even for me, it was like, yes, this is so awesome.
And there'd be like delayed honks. So like, horn on the cars, go beep, beep, beep. And then like 5 seconds later, it'd be like, because the kids are just like, oh, I get to do that.
So that was just like, it was so nice to kind of get back to a normal program that, you know, the staff for sure enjoyed. It brought kind of a new sense of energy to us that we were able to do a program that we love, but in a completely different style and in a style that was safe for everyone involved. And like Brittany said, even though it was cold and rainy, I would do it in a heartbeat if it was, you know, 30 degrees out and it was snowing, because it was just so much fun. And the program was a success. We had people saying, are you going to do this again? And we're going to continue doing it. For sure, we have one in April. We'll be doing it this summer, and may just do it as kind of a special program once we are back to normal, just because it is something completely different, and, you know, fun for kids that they can be in the car for 20 minutes and not have to sit through like a full movie at the drive-in, but they still get that drive-in experience. So, but that is all we have. So we just want to say thank you. And I know Angie, if you have any questions, we're happy to answer them.
So first of all, this is the contact slide. You'll see their information other times too, and it's in handouts, everything. So you will be able to contact them. Sounds amazing. Oh, awesome. And one of the things I wanted to kind of touch on too, and kind of emphasize with what you said about doing it, even if tomorrow COVID was gone, and then it was like, you could always do this as a special program. You could do this 3 or 4 times a year. One of the things I love about it too, like, I think in a lot of ways, it's accessibility. Like, if you've got a parent that has like a 2-month-old and they're like, I cannot bring them into the building and sit down for story time, but my 4-year-old wants to come, they get to have the contained program right there. It might be less stressful for adults that are in that way are like, I can't juggle 27 things at a time and sit through a 40-minute story time, and saying, you know what, you're going to come sit in your car and you're going to get the program in front of the car. I think to think about it from that accessibility option is like really cool, especially because like you said, you already have the equipment, like you bought the stuff. So like now you have the stuff, you already have the transmitters. I also thought too, so so everybody, I think this is a question people are going to have. So they got a copy of the book and you made a big book and you held the big book up and you walked across. Is that correct? Can you tell us a little bit about what that was like? Like you held the big book up and you walked across the line of 12 cars.
Yes. Yep. So I also sent instructions on how I made the big book too. So that'll be included for resources. Yep. So you can take a look at that. But yes, it was, we had mounted it on larger construction paper. We didn't have the time to laminate it, which then it was destroyed after the rain. But yes, it was kind of being Vanna White across the cars, and just being, the timing wise for the people that were reading, be slow, like kind of do this slow so that we have time to go through, and then just switching the, pages as we went. And then we didn't do it the second time because we kind of realized, well, everyone has a copy of a book and everyone's head was down. So, which was fine, which was honestly perfect. Yeah, which was great. But it's a great option if, we're blessed that we have a budget that we can do that. But if that's not an option for you, purchasing, 3 copies of a paperback and then deconstructing it to make it a big book, that's an option that you don't need to purchase books for, every car. And they'll still be able to actually see the pictures, and it's big enough for them to see.
And so only one of you walked across.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep.
That was the other thing I thought too. You could like cross each other. It could be like hilarious.
Yeah.
And we did see quite a few families like looking down at the book, but that could have been because it was raining too, because our second book was the Elephant Piggy one. So we were each a character, and it was kind of perfect. It was raining because even like they needed an umbrella and stuff, and we had brought props actually. So we're like, I don't know. So it was a lot of fun, but if it's not raining next time, maybe more of them would be looking up at us, but it was dark and outside. So.
And the rain windshield wipers and everything just a little difficult to see. Yeah. So, yeah.
And again, too, that's why you were saying, Brittany, with the like too many cars, because they're not parked deep, they're parked across. So if you have like 20 cars, you can't, like, you're walking all the way down. So what you were saying about pacing out how much you're actually going to have to walk.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we did that when we were thinking about registration limits. Our first one was, let's do 15, but let's go outside. Let's count 15, and then we go,
and no. Megan was like way down. Like, no, this isn't
yeah.
Even the amount of time it would take to get through, having to walk all the way down.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that I was really drawn to too was the music, and I think you could even say, okay, you know what? One time we're not going to read a book. We're going to have a car dance party. And you could just hand out like shakers, and it could literally be a bag of, and be like, we made a playlist. You come turn the car on and dance in your car. So again, that kind of like, and we're not going to read a book. We're not going to do a show. We curated 20 minutes of songs, and you get a bag, and then you put a handout in the bag that talks about the importance of singing as an early literacy skill. And then you don't have to program anything. You don't have to be like, oh my gosh, I couldn't Vanna White it. I couldn't walk in front of 12 cars of the book. You just are like, here, we're playing music. You're gonna dance in your car and shake your egg shakers. Bye everybody, see you next time. So that kind of feeling that like, do what kind of works for where you are.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And and the library that we modeled this after, they did storytelling, which I am not a good storyteller. So I was like, either that's not something I want to do, but I can do a story time and I can read a book. Yep. And so that was an option for us, and it worked for us, and it was good. But if you're a great storyteller, or if you like want to do a puppet show with it, that's an option. It's just getting those, pieces of equipment and then making it your own with what you're comfortable doing. So,
And how you tell the patrons, kind of like what you were showing with like, you know, come in your car, like that's really what we're selling. We're selling like it's the car, it's in your own space. So I think too, then patrons don't care if you do a puppet show or a music or they don't care. Like if you're really clear in like what we're advertising and this is the gimmick, this is the what we're selling, then from there you have your own kind of comfort level. So
Yep.
love it. Love it. And I know this is included in the handout, but let's just say, what would be a general cost, would you say, for all of this equipment? Like how much approximately do you think all this kind of costs for the transmitter?
For now, if you didn't have like the microphones and things like that, our director actually found the microphone receiver, a second one, so he didn't have to disconnect the one in our meeting room for $25 on eBay. So that's always an option. Transmitter was about same, probably 75. So I would say about $100, $150 in technology. And then more if you wanted to add the egg shakers and other pieces to the.
Which are fairly cheap.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
And again, for accessibility, you could have a program in a year from now that in your library, you end up having 100 people and you don't have to scream over them because now you have a mic set that you, and so you're not screaming over 150 kids. You put the mic on and you're like, hey, everybody, I'm talking to you with the mic. So to think about it as not a one-time investment of.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And we're gonna say, because we'll be doing a total of, that we have planned, 5 of these drive-in story times so far. So, I mean, even with that, cost per program is very low once you get, you know, multiple sessions. And again, exactly what you said, those microphones can be used inside for programs that are hand-free. And so.
And Brittany too, one of the things that I like that you said that the kid would look at the book and think like, oh, I remember that every time they went. You could also make like, you could make a logo for drive-in story time and put that in the book. And then every time the parent's like, oh yeah, remember we did that. And it's that like that car logo, Brittany, that you had that says the Johnston Public Library. You could stick that on a sticker on the back of every single one of those. So that every time it's associated with not only the library, but this program the library did. And so it kind of brings it back every time. And that too is a return on investment where you're like, well, the word of mouth. And parents are like, what's this? Oh my gosh, you know what the library does? You can drive in there and they do a whole story time.
Yep. And we were able to reach families that were regular Storytime families that have not returned to library due to COVID. And they were like, yeah, we'll be back every single time because this gives access to the library, to story times in a safe manner that we are comfortable with. And that was kind of the big win. I saw one of our regular story timers and his, baby brother that was born last year and is now 1 year old. And it's just like, oh my goodness, you've grown so much. But it's so happy, it's so good to see smiling faces, new faces, but also faces that just haven't been to the library because of COVID.
And it also, it's just like a fun thing to do in a monotony. So much of the past year has been monotony of the same thing over and over again. So this is just like, it's a fun, different thing to do. And then they also associate it with the library, and that's a win-win. So this is amazing. Thank you so much. I know that everybody is I'm sure everybody is super hyped. And first of all, as per usual, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Megan and Brittany. They would love to talk to you about the details. My last question that I always ask is, like, what would you say to a librarian who's like, I can't do that, it wouldn't work, or I might be nervous about starting this? Was it worth it? What words of encouragement or advice would you give them?
I would say do it. Give it a try. Even if we have the equipment, and if you don't, ask us. We're willing to borrow it out. So if you wanted to give it a try, and it doesn't work out for you, there's no, investment in it. Or if it does turn out really well, then you go, okay, director, I need this money and I need to do this because this is something that our patrons enjoyed. This is something that we enjoyed. I know that, we were all getting kind of virtual fatigue. And so this was just a great kind of energy booster for staff, and it just renews your energy and programming and kind of says, hey, this is what we're here for. This is why we do what we do, and give it a go. Ask us all the questions that you have, and we'll be there to cheer you on. So,
and just to echo that, I would say it'd be a lot scarier to do this if you were a solo librarian. I know a lot of libraries aren't fortunate to have more than one youth librarian. So maybe other smaller libraries could partner with another library and say, hey, this library and this library, like, let's collaborate and meet here. And then you can have different families come. You could do more than one session. Because I mean, when you have 2 librarians doing it or more, I mean, it's seriously so much fun. It wouldn't have been as fun by myself, I'm going to be honest. Like, it's just especially, I don't know, it's just was fun collaborating together. And so I would say do it also.
And Brittany, I like that too, because it's also like, if you're in a really small town, you might be like what you were saying, Megan, like, where do we find the space to do this? So like 2 or 3 towns were like, okay, well, if the 3 of us, we can come up with one place that's like everybody could drive to, and it also has enough room. So like that, it wouldn't just be people too. It could be like the town population, the location, like, so that I like that. And I also, what you guys mentioned, if you are a solo librarian or you're from you mentioned like you got a tent from the parks department. So this might also be a thing that if you were from a smaller town or a smaller community or a smaller library, you might think, can I work with my city department on this? Can I work with do they have mics that I could maybe? So, because this is the kind of thing I think a parks department would love to get in on this. I think a parks department would be like, oh yeah. Like at the library I used to work at, they had, the parks did movies in the park, right? And I was thinking like, they would have loved to have us come do a warm up story time before the movies in the park. So it could have been like a collaboration with other people in your city, in your county. Like there's just a lot of options for it. So I love it. So thank you, Megan, and thank you, Brittany. Again, I'm going to do our little wrap up now. You'll love it. It's really great. It's lovely. So thank you to Megan and Brittany, and thank you for watching. A huge thank you to Megan and Brittany and Johnston Public Library for taking the time and effort to be part of this episode of Kernels. If you're watching on YouTube, please check out the links in the description. Everything is in the description, the handout about the material, their slideshow that has their contact information. And if you're in Iowa Learns, these are usually stored as attachments. If you've got a little bit of time, watch another kernel. And this is the important part. If you are doing something at your library, a program, an initiative or service or something else that you think would make a great kernel, it doesn't just have to be about youth services. It can be anything for any age. Reach out to the State Library staff about it. We want to hear about it because Kernels works when you do. That came out weird, but you know what I meant. And we would also hear from you if there's something you would like us to make a Kernels about. If you've heard about something and you would like to know more about it, reach out to us about that too. So we want to hear all about it. We want to say thank you again. Thank you for joining us in this episode. Stay tuned, watch another one, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.